based
You
on the
approved that.
information we were given.
You
We looked at it and
approved
said,
the
this
zoning.
looks good.
Yeah,
In the case I'm talking about, the one, when it came, we approved this lot plan, it showed all the streets and everything. And then when it went to the next meeting of area plan, it got all these buildings for boat storage down through there.
well, I'm gonna look into that to know, I don't know the answer to that. I'd have to see where in the, I think they will wanna do the map changes before you have the details or lines on the paper. Because the map change is the only thing that you're doing. You're not, and those other details are subject to change, I'm fairly certain of that. But I don't know at what point, and I don't recall in the zoning statutes, the ability of the legislative body to be able to, control the regular zoning itself, so.
So we just rely on them that they're going to
Well,
enforce it.
I will look into it.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm not certain of that. That may be something that's supposed to have been done before the document. But you know, you don't want to, looking at it from a developer standpoint, you may not know everything at the time.
Sure.
And you may wanna know, well, am I only gonna be able to put anything here? And put anything here, it might have to change from ag to, or whatever, to whatever. So I'm thinking that there's an element of it that you're not gonna have to control. But I wanna see exactly what it says. And, I bet you were gonna ask something about the process of how does that get recorded, you know, because, that's something that I think Cameron and, Cindy are working on, you know, to formalize more than just have a motion and a second in the commissioner's record approving it, and without having some kind of a paper trail that ties it to a document in their office, because none of those documents get in the commissioner's records, they're all in the, and that office is subject to change, so a person can have significant investment in it, and they have no record of other than a motion, vote motion in the commissioner's meeting. I think that's what we're gonna get to, but I'll research this other question.
Well, in addition to the change on it, there's also a sewer line that runs through it, that the guy who's doing the developing didn't make any account for it. And is saying that if he's not paid an extra amount of money, he wants the sewer line removed. It's been there for a long time. And I don't know, I
Yeah.
looked into to see if it's a recorded easement, and what that is, but it's a significant expense there, the sewer line through it, and he's wanting a significant amount of money to leave it in there in his property. So, it's kind of sense. Also have another question. A lot of the roads up around the lakes are not our roads. There are private roads to certain developments. If there is an association and they own the road, and they maintain it, and they plow it, they do, can they keep people who has houses on that road out of their association? Can they say all of a sudden, you're not anymore, and you can't drive on the road?
Depends upon the association organizational records.
Correct.
And if it was, and sometimes associations don't follow through on they get the documents, have the covenants, and they don't follow through and with the organizational details, so they got the authority, you know, and, but the individual owner, if it's referenced in their, deed, if that existed and so forth, then, you know, the owner can enforce it too. But, so.
The owner of the house or the
Well,
owner of the road?
you're saying that somebody's being denied permission to, I would, it all depends on the details of each case.
Okay.
if it was very loosely organized, then, there may not be enough of a record to do it, to enforce it, or either the association enforce, or the individual owner enforce, depending on which way.
And those would have to be recorded in here in the courthouse or not?
No, they're normally hopefully an incorporated association, and that they may not be an incorporated association. If they're not incorporated, then it's the articles of association and bylaws of the association. And, if those existed at one time and they were properly referenced in the deed, then sometimes you have to go through, reviving the association legally in order to get something accomplished. Sometimes if you're on the side of the landowner against the association, sometimes you have to force, compel by legal action or claim the association to do its duty. So it all depends on the state of the records, and they aren't recorded most of the time. Most of the time, they're not a recorded instrument that you can go to the recorder's office and say, pull any records that you've got on X and X association. Now, sometimes they will, so that's a good place to check. If you're a property owner, ask the auditor if there's any report, if there's anything on the record on this association.
Send it to.
And then going back to the original plat, that's important too, and that was approved by the commission.
I don't want it this big.
Way back there.
You can send it to them,
Yeah,
This
and
association.
then I'll figure out with you how much you want to
yeah, I
spend.
don't know how much.
And I'll give them
how much-
direction.
How many plat records they got.
The size.
I don't know if the assessor keeps those, or if the recorder keeps those, surveyor. keeps
So
them.
$63 a week, or $54
It's-
a week, or what do you want?
Complicated.
Yeah, well, this
varies by case.
homeowner, now the house was built in the eighties,
Well, you
early eighties.
$74,
Driveway goes right to this
that
road.
kind of an ad.
Always used it. It's changed hands 3 or 4 times. The current owner never was assessed a fee for the association. He didn't even know he had to be part of it, until all of a sudden they say, hey, you're not in it, and drove fence posts in front of his driveway.
Hmm.
So he asked me, can the county just take over this section of it? I said, no, not unless they all ask for it.
Right, it has to be dedicated,
Yeah.
and it has to meet highway standards. So it's a real mess.
Okay. Anything else to come before the board? Yes.
I have, I think, 4 questions for you. Back to the front of the meeting. Talking about the RME insurance, or the insurance through RME, he said that it was $14,971 more than what the current policy is. How much is the policy for next year? What's,
And to explain that increase, I don't know whether he did that or not.
he did.
Did he?
Yeah.
Vehicles about not being in on.
Well, and that's another one of my questions. How many vehicles are the taxpayers paying to have insured? How many vehicles?
I didn't hear that.
How many vehicles are being insured by the county?
A lot. It just keeps expanding.
Is there an inventory of vehicles?
Oh, yeah. And I saw it this summer, but I haven't.
And are they all in use? Or some of them
Well,
sitting?
the sheriff's department might have 1 or 2 that's not in use right now. The one that used to be a pool car has ceased to be a pool car, right? It's been,
Well, Cameron did take that, then he took one from the sheriff's department, so we have the pool car back, but nobody has used it.
so we
I
need to
believe
be,
it's down in that parking lot. So that's very rarely used.
with that, it's a good question, because we probably should take that one out of the fleet and sell it, and get rid of it. don't see a use for it. Not everybody who was pooley before is all, have their own cars now.
The Veterans Office used it, and so did the county clerk, we haven't, that was when Amber was here, so I don't know, I can ask those two and report back on the November 16th meeting.
I think that'd be good.
And then, did you ask for quotes from any other providers or brokers, insurance?
We did not this year.
I would say also, people that have asked for it in the past did not contact us either, so.
And then for the burn ban, are there fines involved?
Pardon me?
Are there fines for violating the burn ban?
It's in the ordinance.
So is that yes?
Yes.
Did you give me that ordinance? Is that what that is? Right, okay. So then people can see the ordinance in your office, is that
It
how?
needs to be posted, and it needs to be,
It'll have to be, yeah,
yeah.
Yeah.
It needs to be actually go to the paper and get advertised. Sorry about that.
It will, because it has fines in it.
because it has
Yeah,
fines, yeah.
correct.
And then it is in effect when? After, so many days after it's posted or advertised, or what? I can't remember.
That's one I don't have on top of my head. I
Yeah.
think it's effective when it's, so many days after advertisement. But don't hold me to that,
I-
I look it up. I don't remember. We haven't had one for a while, that was, we've amended several that had penalties, but the penalties were already established, so this is the first one that I can recall that we've had, we did a new one. I'll have to look that up.
That's all I had, thanks.
It's not effective right away anyway.
Yeah, and it might be in the ordinance. How long?
No, it says.
It is not?
It refers as provided by law, so.
Oh. Okay.
Yes,
On the area plan thing, I've been on this, watching that for years, of course, but I think it's something that we really need to think about. Let's just give an example, Hipton Steel and Birthright out here in the town, as I know it's in Delphi, not in Carroll County. But that was a very good change of use, had to be its own business for those two to operate. But same token, there needs to be a way, I think, to zone that business, but we're no longer operating it back where it was, because you know, that business can be a topless bar, it can be anything in through there now, because it's already its own business. And it's no different than if the guy lives here and wants to put a business office next door, maybe for an insurance company. Somehow we need to give him provision that works for him, but it doesn't work for other purposes. Once you zone that business, you can do anything that's underneath the business classification. Once you zone industrial, and do anything under industrial classification. We need to somehow say, okay, it works for you, but we don't want a topless bar there. We don't want this, we want it to work for you, and only for you, and then if you no longer operate, it goes back to the zoning for housing or something like that, or back to where it was. I really think that's you opened up the can of worms with 25, I own the house on the other side, we're building new homes in there, and that could be used for anything, its own business now, those two lots,
out here.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it really, there's
Steve
a lot of,
brought that up at the time, that he wanted to, he questioned whether we could do that, and we have done that on some things. I forget what it's called, maybe that, but we have done that as far as, it's a provisional granting of it, so that they, can operate an insurance office there, but then if the insurance office goes away, it can't become, like you say, a strip bar or something like that. Well, we ran into a little pushback on that because some people say, well, I'm spending a lot of money on, excuse me, on a building and, or remodeling or whatever, and if this tenant leaves, then I don't have the right to release it or and the way that has been left is, well, then you would have to come back and ask us again to make an exception to the zoning for this, which probably isn't a problem.
and it's just not, it's not fair to the property owner next door and says, you know, I think that's great, I didn't do anything because Hippo Steel wants to put it there, they don't think anything more about it, and almost 10 years later, somebody comes up, you know, business classification used for anything,
Yeah.
where Hippo Steel's at.
None of them are gonna be there forever, so, yeah.
I think that needs to be looked at as well as, I don't hear anything more on the CAPO situation, I don't know where we're at on that, because it seems like they're kinda I don't wanna touch that, I don't know whether what Marion Robeson brought in that day with the signs out front and all that stuff is working for the commissioner, or are you getting what you want out of the controls on the CAFOs now, or should I bring it back up again? Meetings.
It can come back up at any time. We, at one time, requested of the area plan to, look at increasing the setbacks. And, it didn't get done. I mean, they've said no, they didn't, wanna increase the setbacks. So, when it comes to us, our rule is either yes or no. On something like that. It is not, Mrs. Boo out here brought up that, she said, I've been here for 20 years, and every time this comes back up, you know, I could change that. No, I can't. I can say to the area plan, I want you to look at it again. But we either can say yes or no. So, it's not quite.
You made recommendation to do that, and then she come back with another plan, and hopefully that plan was gonna work on the existing ones, you know, where they had the, she brought you to your meeting about how they were gonna post out front of the owns and everything. I didn't know if anything, if that had progressed to the point where the commissioner might be okay with where we're at on that, or if they need to go back and see if we're getting what she agreed to do.
The problem that I have with it is some CAFO operators are very conscientious and very good, and they are not a problem to their neighbors. And others are not that way, you know, and so to legislate, how do you legislate and say, good operators can do this, but bad operators can't? I don't know how to do that. I would love for you to come up with an idea as to how we do that. So, yes.
I would say CAFOs are only allowed in Tippecanoe County by special exception.
A
And
lot
that,
of counties have done that.
and then there's a hearing, and there can be stipulations and oversight.
Yeah, that's the way that a lot of counties have done it. They're not automatic in ag area. There's ag areas, and they're allowed in the ag area by special exception, where they have to come in for a public hearing to get done.
But it seems like, I shouldn't designate, it seems like we've got awful good group of people here right now that are listening and trying to do the right things. The area plan.
A lot of them.
And
And using pit additives and stuff that's really helping. I can give a personal example. We have one, my wife and I, a mile exactly south. And when they were just, after the corn came out, they're pumping the tanks out onto the fields, okay? And that drag line comes the whole mile to our house, where they're pumping out right around us on the field. But the people who own that property, that drag line was not out of that field before they were out there disking it in and everything. We had an order out of that maybe one day. I would just, I mean, I'm all in favor of everybody being able to make a living with whatever they're doing. This was very conscientiously done and very well done. It was overhaulers, it was, that were very conscientious about it. That they had that tractor with, you know, disc behind it, everything ready to go before that drag line left that property. And it worked, cause it was black with it, when it started, and it turned right under and. What is that? Huh? Yeah. Yeah. A lot of them are not. You have any more about that?
No, I just kinda wondered, it seemed like the commissioner's asking to look at it, just kinda got dropped. And now they're bringing it up the other day about some other things, and they may be brought back up again.
Well, what'll happen is the next time one of them wants to build one, and some neighbor doesn't want it, and they'll come storming in here, and then it'll all come back to the front again. That's how it always works, you know? And unfortunately, every one of these people who come in think they're the first one this has ever happened to. And it just keeps happening over and over and over all around the county, and again, it just comes down to that operator. Some of them are very good. Yeah, I think think so. I think we have some of the best there probably are anywhere.
I got an answer to that question. It's, goes in 2 consecutive weeks, once each week for 2 consecutive weeks, and it's effective, in my opinion, on the second publication. So, at the time of the second insertion, they could write tickets on it, but I wouldn't write tickets on it before it's been in twice. And so, it won't probably appear in this week's paper, so it'll probably appear in the following.
We
Right.
don't have a foreseeable burn ban coming up. so
Now, if had it been a, very dry season, right now,
Yeah,
you could declare an emergency and then it could be done by posting. So, but I don't think I would consider this an emergency situation.
it's really not very, she asked about what the fine was too. It says, you have a copy of this, don't
I didn't get a copy.
Right.
I don't care what the fine is.
you? Look at you.
I just, yeah, she offered, Beth offered, she always,
A violation of an executive order issued under subsection D may be punished as contempt of the board's order. Or
Yes.
the board may authorize the prosecution of a complaint or ordinance of this section with penalties as prescribed under section 10.99.
And those are the standard penalties applicable to ordinance violations, and, you know, the maximum is $5,000, I think, you know, under Indiana statute, so the judge actually sets the penalty. Now, as far as the first one, you got that same, type of penalty as a contempt of the board's order in effect for, it was discharging a gun on the, county home property or something like that out the old landfill or whatever. I mean, you had some where you had, the penalty for contempt of the commissioner's order is a maximum of $3 fine or a maximum of 1 day in jail.
Well, that's significant.
Yeah. So,
But that's set by the judge.
no, that was set by the commissioners.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Used to use them in Clinton County for truckers that violated the, different things out on the county roads. Sheriff would issue citation, they had to come to the commissioners meeting, and the commissioners usually would say, would you, you know, we'll make a penalty of $1 or $2 or $3, but if you don't pay it, then it's just a day in Clinton County jail. So, didn't have anybody take the jail option.
I know what he did. Okay, is there anything else to come before the board?
Before you adjourn,
I didn't get it, what?
I said, before you adjourn, I wanna ask him something.
Oh, well,
Well, no, that's an example of one, if they have to issue a burn ban, they would have to sign their release. Exactly, nope, that isn't really paper.
Second, all in favor, say aye. We are adjourned. Thank you all.
Please wait till you're 19, man. You were busy talking.
I know, I thought about that, I thought, yes, yeah.
I want to know what you want from me. I have this letter that I got from Don Stopper.
I want that,
Huh?
I want that.
And
then I-
that's when I sent that to these
and
two
then the-
first. Hang on, these two first, okay? Because
Oh,
that's
so
who
you just sent this?
Yes, I just scanned it in, sent that
Okay.
to those two. But then about 3 or 4 days later, I thought, they all need to know this. So I sent it to all of them, okay? That's all I've done. It's the only communication. I didn't have anybody
Okay.
text or email me back.
Well, I didn't know for sure what had happened. I'm turning this off.